And I'd like to start with about a 4.5 minute video, just a sort of an introduction to some of the things that the Red Cross does. It's a little bit, it's pre-COVID, so I'll talk a little bit more about how a few things have changed for that. So Danella, go ahead and play the video, please.
American Red Cross, this is Kim. Can I help you?
You can't imagine what it's like to lose everything like that. Well, maybe you can, because you're the Red Cross. For me and my daughter, there are just no words to describe how we felt.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Chris Johnson.
Bill Bullock.
Sydney Lee.
Hi, Sydney. Nice to meet you. So we have an adult male and a small girl standing over on the other side of the street.
Thanks.
Thank y'all.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes.
Chris Johnson, Sydney Lee from the American Red Cross.
How are you?
Are you okay? What's your name?
Elisa.
Elisa lost all her things in the fire, and you had a teddy bear to give to her. That meant so much to her.
Everything is gone. Everything.
Well, we'll see what we can do to help you. I have a couple more questions here that I need to ask about your immediate needs. Do you have a place to stay tonight?
I've got no place. We just moved here and we don't know anybody. I have a car. I guess we could sleep there.
Don't worry about that. The Red Cross can help you find a place to stay.
We wouldn't have had a roof over our heads if it hadn't been for you, Red Cross.
Ready?
Yeah.
You gonna keep this guy warm?
Yeah.
Qué linda manito que tengo yo. Qué linda la manito que papi me dio. Good night, honey.
Good night, Daddy.
Whether striking suddenly or after hours of anticipation, a disaster can disrupt the life of a community. Yet while the disaster may be a surprise, the American Red Cross disaster response has been planned long in advance. Following a disaster, many people left temporarily, even permanently without a home, turn to the Red Cross for assistance, support, and comfort. Often the process of recovery begins at a Red Cross shelter. A shelter's main purpose is to provide people a safe, temporary place to stay during an emergency until they can return home or find assistance in making other housing arrangements. Shelters vary according to the size and scope of the disaster, the number of people affected, and their needs. The Red Cross will establish shelters in schools, community centers, places of worship, or commercial buildings. Regardless of the disaster, the Red Cross works together with local government authorities, including emergency management officials, police and fire departments, and public health agencies, to assure the safety and welfare of the people in its care. Most important to the success of a shelter is the commitment by all Red Cross workers to quality service. This means workers ensure the safety of the shelter, respect the culture and background of all clients, provide fair and consistent services, enable them to make other living arrangements, and use the material and human resources of the Red Cross wisely.
If you give a client the feeling that you have addressed their specific needs, then that will automatically give you that feedback that you have truly provided or assisted them.
Our whole objective here is to empower people so that they can get back on their feet and get back to their normal life.
It's a challenge, but it's also what's so rewarding. Is that at the end of the day, I'm looking around at all these people who have made it in and hopefully gotten the help that they've needed, and I've had something to do with that.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to switch over to a slideshow here. Find the magic button. Share screen. Okay, so are my slides showing now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, so just a few notes on that. We'll have time for questions at the end, of course. So feel free to post any questions you have about the video. Started off showing one of our disaster action teams, which is probably most of our responses. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. These are the home fires. You know, the Red Cross, we have people on standby 24/7, 365. Usually get by the fire department if somebody needs a place to stay. And just also, well, as I'll be talking about later, just emphasizing the partnerships. You know, they talked a little bit about that. You know, as much as I'd like to say an organization the size of the Red Cross can do it all, we rely very heavily on community partners, government partners, and other people in the community. So I'll be talking about that more as we go along. So I'd like to start with a quick word from our sponsor here. This is our official Red Cross mission statement. There's two things I want to call people's attention to is that we rely very much on volunteer. We're about 90% volunteer, and this is at all levels, pretty much anything in the Red Cross, probably all the positions that you saw in the video that was very likely volunteers. And of course, we don't receive any government funding. We rely entirely on donations. And I'll just talk about this in the context of our prepare, respond, recover cycle. And if you notice, the prepare arrow is quite a bit bigger than the others. You know, people think about, you know, the big disasters that happen and, you know, the shelters close, people who go back to their homes. And for a lot of people, that seems like the end of it. But for us, it's just the beginning of a new cycle. You know, we're right back to the preparation. You think about everything that it takes to be able to open a shelter anywhere in the county, you know, within a few hours, you know, and someplace, you know, close to Ukiah or Willits, it might be as little as a couple hours from the time that we get a notification, the time that we're actually able to receive people in a shelter. You know, on the coast, probably would take a little bit longer. It, you know, it could take several hours just to get certain places in Mendocino County. But we'll be elaborating more on all these concepts as we go along. So in the preparation phase, we talk about basically three concepts: to make a plan, build a kit, and be informed. So I know you're all wondering, well, what kind of plan, what kind of kit, and what kind of information do I need? And so a good place to start with that is by understanding some of the hazards that we might be preparing for. And again, just a reminder, the upper left corner that representing one of our disaster action team responses, that's primarily what I do in the Red Cross. I'm the disaster action team coordinator for Mendocino and Colusa counties. And then of course, you know, floods, if you happen to live in Ukiah, we do get flood occasionally, tsunamis, very real danger on the coast, and earthquakes. You know, it can happen here. We do have a couple of major faults. We have the Miocmas fault running through Ukiah and Willits that can create about a magnitude 8 earthquake. And of course, the Cascadia subduction zone off the coast, which is the one that really gives us all nightmares, which could cause a 8 or 9 earthquakes going on for several minutes and followed by a tsunami of anywhere from about 40 to 120 feet, depending on where you are along the West Coast. So as the beginning of your preparation always starts with an understanding of what it is we're preparing for. And hopefully you'll come up with a better plan than this one. So making a plan, we don't have time to go into too many details here, but the redcross.org website does have a lot of information you can download, a lot of details. But basically, as you're making a plan, you want an evacuation plan for home, for work. You want at least 2 ways out. You know, what goes into your kit, depending on what you want to take with you. And if people are sort of scattered when the disaster happens, maybe at school, at work, shopping, whatever, you might want to think about a meeting point for the family outside of the home if people can't get back to the home. An out of area contact can be really useful if communications are down, you manage to get through to somebody who's lives in another state or something. If your extended family knows to call that person to find out how things are going, it's a way to let everybody know you're okay. Think about any special needs, any medical for your family, including non-human family members, and then really important to practice, review, and update your plan. So what goes into your kit? Well, just think about some of your normal essential activities, what you need to keep going. Basic supplies, things like food, water, special needs, medicines, wheelchairs, walkers, any special things for mobility. Depending on your situation, you might want to have more than one kit, one in your home, a larger one in your home, maybe a smaller one in your car. Think about how many days your kit lasts, and that depends in part on the nature of the disaster. I mean, a home fire, smoke alarm goes off at 2 a.m. Your primary use is to get out, get everybody out safely. And following a major earthquake, you might be sheltering in place in your home for a week or two. And you, of course, remember your non-human family members. Think about how you're going to communicate, how you're going to get news. What if the utilities are off for several days? For some people, it might just be an inconvenience. For other people, it could be life-threatening. And of course, be informed, and that includes having reliable information. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. I've got the last slide has some phone numbers and websites, and just basic safety skills like drop, cover, and hold on during an earthquake, stop, drop, and roll in the case of a fire. And seems like a no-brainer, but once everybody's out, stay out. We see, like, I shouldn't say too often, because once is too often, but people are injured either trying to fight a fire in their home, or everybody's out and then somebody goes back in to try and get something, and nothing in there is worth your life. So just once you're out, everybody's out, stay out, call 911. And then learn some basic life-saving skills, CPR, the defibrillator, basic first aid skills, and that might include pet first aid if you have for your non-human family members. And as we move into the response phase, as we saw in the video, where the Red Cross works very closely with government and other community organizations, things like fundraising, managing in-kind donations, things like clothing donations. And of course, before you can respond, your preparation is a huge part of that, especially if you're a member of a responding organization. If people are not prepared to take care of themselves, if they don't know if their family is safe, they're probably not going to be very effective as responders. So job number one, the first step, of course, is always being prepared, being organized. And we have a lot of opportunities, both with the Red Cross and our partners, as I talked about, those managing donations. The Red Cross is not really prepared to take clothing donations, but fortunately we have community partners who are prepared to take on some of that kind of stuff. Providing transportation for individuals, connecting people with resources, and if you want to do more, you actually get trained to offer specific services like sheltering or training, have all those options. And again, the fundraising, for a lot of people, the shelters close, evacuations are lifted, and for a lot of people, people go home, and that seems like the end of it. But for us, thinking back to that prepare, respond, recover cycle, for us, it means restocking our shelter trailers, restocking our supplies. Our trailers pull into the shelter full, they pull out half full. And this is where the cash donations become very much appreciated. And donating money seems kind of impersonal, but it lets us buy exactly what we need when we need it. And it also helps the economy of a devastated community, because we're usually purchasing from local businesses. And as the recovery cycle, people start returning home, and the evacuations are lifted, starting on any repairs, rebuilding, applying for government assistance, contacting their insurance company if they have insurance, starting the process of replacing personal and household items, managing financial issues. And again, this is where, not only the Red Cross, but our community partners come in, have a huge role to play here. And then, of course, once the recovery is done, we're right back to starting to prepare for the next disaster. And so just a few words about our local Red Cross. As I mentioned, I think we're about 90% volunteer, and this is at all levels. The person managing a multi-county disaster response may very well be a volunteer. It will be a very well-trained and a very experienced volunteer. So our responsibilities has nothing to do with the size of our paychecks. It really comes down to who is the best person to handle the job. And a few statistics so far in Mendocino County this year, 14 disaster action team responses, primarily to home fires. We did have that gas line explosion in Ukiah. Actually, that happened while we were actually operating a shelter for the LNU complex fire in Lake County. Had responses in Fort Bragg, Ukiah, Willits, 34 families, helping a total of 71 people so far. And this is in addition to our normal, the shelters that we've been assisting with in Lake County and Mendocino County for the recent fires here. And so opportunities, basically everything that we've talked about so far is done by volunteers. So if you have 5 to 10 hours a month, we'll help you find a rewarding opportunity. You know, some of the preparation things, planning, again, what does it take to open a shelter within 2 or 3 hours anywhere in the county? Having the people and supplies ready to go, knowing the tires on the trailers are pumped up, maintaining those community partnerships, and of course, keeping everybody up to date on their training. You know, the response, again, the home fires, the disaster action team, shelters have to be staffed, they have to be supplied. We use technology to keep everything moving. And then in the recovery phase, we have follow-up casework, you know, working with people after the disasters for those who've lost homes, and again, distributing supplies, distributing cleanup kits, and sending damage assessment teams out, depending on the nature of the response. So this is the last slide. If possible, I'd like to leave this up during the question period. Up at the top is our local Red Cross office in Lakeport. I'm welcome to call that with any questions that you have. Redcross.org. You can download all kinds of disaster preparation information. We do have apps for mobile devices. You can go to redcross.org/apps, or just go to your app store for your phone or tablet, whatever you have. We talked about the importance of reliable information during a disaster, and a good source here in Mendocino County is the Mendocino County Sheriff's Facebook page. The next one, calfire.ca.gov, that's the CAL FIRE website, again, with reliable information on fires, depending on how busy they are. Well, it's usually updated at least once a day. The next one for river conditions for those in Ukiah, or if you're living in want to check on floods. It's actually a really nice little website. It shows you real-time river information, river levels, and it projects ahead, you know, when the peak flooding is likely to occur. And these next ones, really important, the Mendo Alert or Everbridge. You can sign up to receive messages on cell phone, by email, your home phone. So there's the website for signing up for that, and Nixle alerts, which will go out from the Sheriff's Department for evacuations, updates, anything that might present a public safety issue and requires immediate response. So you can either sign up for all of Mendocino County alerts or just your particular zip code. And you can also go to the website at nixle.com to register.